Mrs. Shalini Goyal Bhalla, the Managing Director of International Council for Circular Economy, eminent participants, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed a distinct honor for me to be present here today for the Indian Circular Economy Forum 2022 and to share my thoughts with all of you on oceans and circular economy. Our blue planet, the Earth, has a dominance of the maritime domain, with over 70% of the Earth's surface covered by water, nearly 80% of the world's population living within 200 nautical miles of the coast, and 90% of the world's trade transiting by sea. Oceans are therefore essential to life on Earth. They are rich in oil, gas, and mineral resources. They are the suppliers of oxygen, and the oceans supply 50% of our oxygen. And as one of my colleagues says, and this is an interesting conjecture that I would like all of you to reflect on, that every second breath that you take is provided by the oceans. The oceans are also absorbers of carbon dioxide, and 30% of the greenhouse gases and the carbon dioxide generated by humankind is absorbed by the oceans. They provide us with food in the form of fish and green algae. They also provide us with salt from the seas. The oceans are a virtual heat sink which keep our planet cool. They have the largest biodiversity and have emerged as global economic highways for transit of seaborne trade. With depletion of resources on land, humankind has turned towards the seas for resources. And there is a misperception that the oceans are an unending resource base and are an infinite sink for dumping of garbage. Nothing could be further away from reality. The reality is that over the past few decades, or past many decades actually, we have actually been polluting our oceans, and this has led to a detrimental impact of climate change and global warming on the oceans. Studies have indicated that nearly 80% of all pollutants in the oceans emanate from land. And if the current rate of pollution continues, in a few decades from now, we will have more plastic in the ocean than fish. About 13 million tons of plastics is dumped or flows into the oceans of the world every year. And it is the same plastic waste in the ocean which links the oceans to the circular economy. And if we are to utilize this plastic waste as a resource for recycling and in our industries, then we would need to adopt the principle or the approach of reuse and recycle. And that will ensure that not only will we reduce the pollution in the oceans, but we will also have raw material which can be utilized. The recyclable plastics can be utilized and given a new lease of life in different industries, ranging from textiles to the packaging industry for nylon ropes to fishing nets. And the non-recyclable plastic waste can actually be used innovatively by leveraging technology in high energy efficiency manufacturing areas. This would be a win-win situation where we will reduce the pollution in the oceans and at the same time use the plastic waste as a resource base to promote and contribute towards the circular economy. The Society for Aerospace, Maritime and Defense Studies, of which I had the privilege of being the founder chairman, has taken on a very, very dynamic an ambitious project, which is to draft a universally accepted global maritime accord. This unique initiative, which has the clean, healthy, as well as sustainable oceans as the core theme, actually aims to counter the detrimental impacts of global warming and climate change by leveraging the maritime domain to ensure preservation and conservation as well as protection of the oceans. In this Global Maritime Accord, we will be looking at various aspects ranging from governance of the oceans to marine spatial planning so as to prevent development of ocean slums, to look into the problems of IUU fishing, the pollution which is generated by the shipping of the world. And I may mention here that if we combine the entire world shipping and club it as a country, it'll be the 6th largest polluter country in the world. We also have problems related to the contamination of the natural marine habitat. We have the problem related to pollution. And more importantly, we have the problems which are related to small island development states. And we intend to look at how to provide them capacity building and capability enhancement by giving them assistance for maritime domain awareness, even space-based surveillance, so that they can monitor as well as look into aspects related to conservation and preservation and protection of the oceans. As part of the Global Maritime Accord, it is also intended to draft a comprehensive action plan, clearly outlining what needs to be done, how it will be achieved, who will do it, and by when. This is an India-led international initiative for global good with the vision of save the oceans for a safe earth. To counter the detrimental impacts of the pollution in the oceans, we would have to carefully look at how and where this pollution is actually entering the oceans. Because once it enters the ocean, the plastic just floats around, moves with the currents and the waves, and it keeps accumulating and becomes small islands, bigger islands, and huge mass of garbage which keeps then floating around the world. Currently, if we examine the oceans of the world, there are 5 major gyres or garbage islands which are floating around. They're called the North Pacific Gyre, the South Pacific Gyre, the North Atlantic Gyre, South Atlantic Gyre, and the Indian Ocean Gyre. These are nothing but huge, huge areas and islands of plastic which have accumulated over decades. Because you can imagine, every year if we pump 13 million tons of plastics, it just stays there in the ocean. Some of the plastics, of course, disintegrates into the areas such as it settles down into the seabed, and that's not good for the ecology. But some of it also enters into the food chain. And that is very, very harmful, not just for the fish, but for the humans as well. And microplastics are now even entering the salt chain. Talking about the gyres, just to give you an idea as to how big these patches are, the biggest among that is the North Pacific Gyre, which is also called the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. And this garbage patch extends over an area of 1.6 million square kilometers. And it is estimated that this garbage patch probably weighs about 80,000 tons or more. And to put things in perspective in terms of the land areas, 1.6 million square kilometers means the size of 3 locations of the total area of France. That means 3 French, or the total area of France together would come to about 1.6 million square kilometers. That is the kind of garbage that is floating in one area. I mentioned 5 of them. And it's not as if the rest of the seas are unpolluted. They also have plastics and other waste just floating around. Plastic is, because it's not degradable, that's why the problems. And we need to make sure somehow that we counter this and sort this out. Technology is available. Technology is available today to sweep this plastic from the oceans. Uh, and before it actually sinks into the seabed, which, as I said, is very bad for the natural marine habitat and the ecology, or indeed it converts itself into microplastics. But this technology is time consuming, it is very expensive, and it is a complicated process. The technologies actually utilize autonomous trash trawls. It also utilizes certain sea robos as well as aqua drones. And efforts are on and initiatives are on to try and clear some of these patches, but these are too huge. And these are initial stages with some success. But as I said, this is a highly complicated process. And it's one of the most expensive and the least efficient processes of trying to harvest the plastic out of the sea. So what is the solution? The solution is that we actually have to intercept the plastic on land and get into the complete cycle of collection and then to reuse, recycle, the complete process. So we have to target actually areas which are on land, between the land and sea. That means it comes in through the rivers, the upper reaches of the rivers, water bodies, coastal areas, coastal water bodies, the the waste disposal plants, which are actually just pumping waste into the ocean. We need to target all those and then make sure that we get hold of this plastic and then start using it as a resource base, as a raw material to get it into the blue economy. Not the blue economy, the circular economy. Here is where we could utilize the renewable plastics, as I said, can actually be given a new lease of life. Technology is available today. By treating it adequately, it actually becomes a good raw material which can be used in a variety of industries, from repackaging to recycling in high-tech industries, for fishing nets, for nylon ropes, and even the non-recyclable plastic technology is available today to use it as a fuel in the high energy intensive industry and also in the high-tech industry. And this is where India needs to take actually a lead by transfer of technology from advanced countries. Europe has done a lot of good work in it, and that is where we need to get the technology, because this is where we have the waste. And this is where we need to take the lead and get in technology and start reducing the pollution in the oceans and getting adequate, as we say, waste available as a resource which can then be utilized. It's also important to understand that any pollution put in the ocean has a very detrimental impact on the natural marine habitat. And today, about 10 billion US dollars are spent in countering the negative impact of plastic waste in the oceans. This is for industries such as the tourism industry, the impact which is there on the fishing industry, the impact on the shipping industry, and also for the cleanups. So therefore, we need to make sure that all this money that is being spent can actually be saved if we were not to pollute the oceans in the first place and catch the plastic, or actually take control of the plastic and use it as a resource base, even if we have to give in some incentives for collection of the plastic and then to reuse and recycle. In conclusion, I would like to highlight a few major takeaways. The first is that we need to come up with some innovative ideas and strategies as to how we are going to prevent the plastic waste from entering into the oceans. It is not a simple task. Why? Because the moment it leaves the shores and enters into the sea, it floats and enters into international waters. And as you're all aware, there are no boundaries on the high seas. And oceans are the global heritage of mankind. And then it becomes everybody's responsibility to try and clean up the oceans. This is where I think the initiatives such as the Global Maritime Accord, which I talked about, has to play a major role, where it is an international kind of an initiative. Of course, the GMA is an Indian-led international initiative, as I said, for global good, to keep the oceans clean and healthy. But we would have to come up with some initiatives like that, where the international organizations, international countries, everybody is involved, understanding that this is a problem, and we tackle it as part of the Sustainable Development Goal, particularly the SDG 14, which talks about preservation of the ocean, seas, and resources. We will also have to think in terms of having some international funding available, because as I said, cleaning plastic from the oceans, harvesting that waste as a resource from the oceans is not only time consuming, but it's also complicated and expensive. So there needs to be some international fund which will need to be set up, and we would need to help out the developing countries, the small island states which have huge exclusive economic zones, but no wherewithal to actually carry out surveillance or indeed the cleanup of this area. So it has to be an international effort. The second part, as I said, is that we need to tackle and intercept the plastic waste between the land and sea, when it emanates on land and before it enters into the sea. And that is a policy that we will have to have, even if it means providing incentives so that we collect the plastics and thereafter reuse and recycle it in the rivers, in the water bodies, in the coastal areas. We need to carry out coastal cleanups in a big, big way. It has to be a people's movement. It has to be something where everybody gets involved, because it cannot be handled by a single organization or a single country for that matter. So every country has to contribute towards that, and then have the approach of reuse, recycle, so that this plastic waste then becomes a source. Once we have got to that stage, and it must happen simultaneously because we'll never achieve 100% success on day one. It'll be a slow effort by which we stop this floodgate of plastic which is flowing into the oceans and reduce it slowly over a period of time to a trickle, and in the meantime start collecting all that. Once we have that, then we can, as I said, utilize the recyclable part of the plastics with the leveraging of technology, with the requirements of various industry, and give it a new lease of life as a raw material, and use it in wide-ranging industries, because recyclable plastic is actually, after being treated, is as good a raw material as it was in the original state, when it can be utilized from, as I said, from textiles to nylon ropes for fishing nets in the high-tech industry, and so on. And even the non-recyclable plastic waste needs to be treated. We need to get the technology which is available today in Europe and other advanced countries, use the technology as to how we can convert the non-recyclable waste into and bring it into the industry and use it as a resource base, particularly in the high energy intensive industries as a fuel and for other requirements as well. The seas around us are gaining newfound importance as each day goes by, and I have no doubt that the current century is the century of the seas. The Honorable Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi ji, has launched a dynamic initiative of Swachh Bharat, or Clean India. We need to extend this initiative to Swachh Sagar, or clean and healthy oceans. As a resurgent maritime nation, India needs to take the lead and get the other countries of the region and the maritime nations of the world involved to draw up a comprehensive action plan for ensuring clean, healthy, and sustainable oceans. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the International Council for Circular Economy for organizing this conference, which is very timely, and I think it is the need of the hour to create this awareness. And I'm sure that the enriching presentations and vibrant deliberations will take place, will provide us with some path-breaking suggestions and recommendations on how to stop pollution in the oceans and how to utilize the plastic waste as part of the circular economy. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.